Anthony Slater, our 95.7 The Game Insider, does a tremendous job at The Athletic. Just exceptional work, and he's been all over this situation with Draymond Green as he ramps his way back up. Warriors, they just need to win to get to 3-4 in a 7-game homestand at the Toronto game. Let's start there before we get into Draymond Green. That Toronto performance in the first half, excluding 2019, because we know how bad that season was, Anthony. Was that as bad as a half have you seen for the Golden State Warriors under Steve Kerr?
I don't know. I might go like second half Sacramento this year, right? Blowing the lead. I mean, there's been some really bad second half.
Right.
Just, this season. But
down 27 at the half? Oh, my gosh.
Yeah, it's pretty bad, now that you put it at 27. How about the first quarter from the Kings yesterday? They were down like 18 to the Pistons.
I did see that. They scored 47 against them.
Yeah, there's been some bad ones, but I do think like context always matters, right? And just like considering where this season was, where this homestand was, that was as surprising of a no-show, especially for a team, by the way, this season. They've mentioned it. They don't really get blown out. They do not blow anybody out, but they don't typically get blown out.
How loud were the boos in the arena? Because I was getting mic'd up and I was locked in on the halftime show. How loud were the boos there Sunday when they walked into the locker room at halftime?
On one to like where the Eagles fans are probably at for their home team right now, it was probably like a 4. Like It wasn't like just raining down, fire everybody. But it was like, oh wow, they're booing in here, which you hadn't heard. Like it was audible boos. So.
What'd you make of Draymond Green's podcast and Draymond Green's appearance at a podium yesterday?
I thought it was very long. I believe it was 37 minutes, and it was about 6-7 questions. So you can imagine, like the answers were very drawn out, which is fine. It was good. I think my two takeaways are he did take a level of like responsibility on where this season has cratered to. Right, talking about trying to get back, saying like I've cost this team enough. He mentioned the funny thing with Pajemski, like trying to give him a standing ovation in film, like a welcome back. And he's like, I'm not sure anybody should be giving me a standing ovation right now. But also, my biggest takeaway as far as like moving forward, the league just wants them to stop like flagrant foul 2-ing people, right?
Right.
Like, just no more hitting people. The Warriors are like, no more anything, like no more distractions, no more talking to refs. Like, you need to get back and like it needs to be all about winning, and it can't be about, Draymond's referred to it as the antics. Well, that includes like, can he really like just stay out of like the technicals, stay out of all that? Like to me, that'll show a lot in the first few weeks. Like, is he fully back, fully invested in trying to make this thing work?
I don't know if you got a chance to hear on Willard and Dibs yesterday in the afternoon. We had Steve Kerr on, and he said this. I want you to listen to this quote, and then you can react to it. Here's Steve Kerr yesterday with Willard and Dibs.
It's a big part of it, and we've talked about it. Can he walk that line? Can he still play with fire and energy, but leave the officials alone? That's the challenge. It's going to be a big challenge, but we're going to ask him to do that. We need that so that we can focus on the game. His teammates need that so that we can focus on all of the little details that are eluding us right now, that are keeping us from being a consistent team. So that's what we're asking him.
Do you think he can do that?
We'll see. It's funny. The night in Phoenix, if you actually go back to his press conference in Phoenix, which is most remembered for his like apology to Nurkic and just like that whole situation, he mentioned that night he had been lately trying to stay off the refs because he was like, this was already an objective of his. And he would say, if you go look at like maybe the 5-6 games prior to the Nurkic club, whatever you want to call it, like he'd been really good and locked in and like not focused on the refereeing. So can he do it? I think he can. I think he can for a stretch, but we're not talking about a stretch, right? We're talking about like a few months, a potential playoff run, heated environments, times in the game where the lead is slipping away. That's where they need him not to do it. You guys remember I mentioned that second half in Sacramento. Part of that collapse in the second half in Sacramento was, remember how obsessed he got with the Malik Monk?
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
That is, I think, like the example that Steve Kerr is like referring to, where part of the collapse in that game was like Draymond just got so unfocused on the action, charged the arena up fully, committed some fouls, went over to the bench, was arguing with assistants, had to go to the back, and like it was just part of them completely losing focus on the game, and that happens when leads are slipping, and they can't have any of that. Do I think he can do it for a while? Yes. For the entire season, we'll see.
Anthony Slater here on the Morning Roast on 95.7 The Game. Our 95.7 The Game insider does a great job for The Athletic. So Steve Kerr, also, he's talking about the crisis of Draymond Green and his career is at a crisis or whatnot. What does that even look like? What does that mean? Like, if he pulls another act, the Warriors can possibly move him, and what do they be able to do with the contract? Because I don't even know what that means, because he has another 3 years left on the deal, Anthony.
Yeah, I don't know if that's as in much like referring to the Warriors, where obviously, sure, like the deadline's coming up. It's not completely impossible that something goes down. But I think more the league, right? Like,
right.
They just went from 5-game to indefinite. Honestly, I thought the second foul was not as bad as I thought Gobert was worse than Nurkic. Would you guys agree?
Yes.
I mean, they're both bad.
On
but
a Draymond scale?
Yeah, choking. 9-second choke hold, going from the 3-point line in front of the Warriors bench. That was rough.
Yeah, I'd say that's a little worse than the Nurkic, flail. But my point is, the Nurkic suspension was much stiffer than the Gobert one, right? Mm-hmm. So the league is basically saying, like, this is like a step ladder towards, like, you could do something that maybe not even as bad as the Nurkic, but it might be like rest of the season. Like, what do you all think the league's going to do the next time he has
remainder of the season?
Yeah. So when we talk about, like, career being on the line, to me, that's it, right? Like, what might the league do if these acts continue? All right, I'll actually give you another example. Sabonis in the playoffs last year, right? He gets 1 game for that. What if that exact situation played out in game 1 or game 2 of a first-round series this year? What's the league doing now? I don't think it's 1 game.
Yeah, I think it's a series, maybe the playoffs.
I was
maybe
say playoffs.
He's done it till next season. So,
especially remember, it's not even just the Sabonis stuff. Remember that he was yelling
fired
at
up the crowd.
He was doing the
it's called the Hulk
WWE
Hogan.
and Adam Silver's in the building.
Yep.
Like, that type of stuff, like, if you start doing that to the league again, that's why they say career on the line, right?
Yep. Hey, he did that against Cleveland this year on a Saturday night against the Cleveland Cavaliers at Chase Center where he got ejected. So it's all bad. Something else that's all bad is Andrew Wiggins. And I don't know what the hell's going on with him. He looks lost. He looks like he's not as strong as he used to be. He looks a little frail. Steve Kerr punted on the – go ahead.
Did you hear when I asked Steve about Andrew yesterday?
I may have missed it. I was so caught up in Draymond Green that I may have missed that.
Yeah. I don't necessarily expect you to hurt, but I thought it was interesting. So he basically made it clear he can't really play Wiggins and Kuminga together.
I did see that, Anthony. I saw that. Yeah.
I followed up after hey, look, Wiggins was minus 29 last game. He was whatever it wasn't good against Detroit. Kind of all the lineup combinations right now. Like if you look at the metrics over the season, are not good with him. Like, how sustainable is it? Or, however I worded it. And he basically said he wants to wash the last 2 games away. And he made a pretty full-throated defense of, look at the 15 games prior to the last 2 of Andrew Wiggins. He's trending well. He's playing well. It was I'm going to stick with him, at least in the rotation. So, I mean, whatever that means. But he was go look at the last 15 games. Go look at the stats. It's been better. I'm like, he was okay, but I don't know. I thought that part was interesting.
You think he gets moved?
I think if you had to pin me down and say, who's most likely, I would probably say Andrew Wiggins. I'm curious. When he signs the 4-year deal extension last, whatever it was, last offseason, it was considered one of the more team-friendly deals in the league, right? Guy just coming off being a huge part of a title, is signed to a team-friendly, $25-ish million a year with the cap going way up, and he's a 3-and-D, plug-and-play wing anywhere you put him. Now, obviously, that has not been the case this year, but it's still if you still view Andrew Wiggins, if you're the Indiana Pacers, if you're the Cleveland Cavaliers, I'm naming them because they're particularly the Cavs, teams that need starting small forwards. It's what they really lack. If you think he could get back to himself, he's a really good option there at a really reasonable price. So I do think there's maybe teams that would view that as a tradable, at least trade for contract. But we'll see. I mean, the big thing right now is the Wiggins-Kuminga thing. If we think that needs to get broken up, and if they're saying we cannot play them together, I think it seems pretty obvious the one that they should probably choose at this point, right?
Who is it?
I mean, just Kuminga he's cheap the next couple of years. He's playing better right now. And if you get off the Wiggins money, that can basically flip into Kuminga money 2 years down the road, right? As you try to reset your books, you look at the age, you look at the trend of where their careers are going. I mean, does that not seem like the obvious choice?
No. I mean, me and Bonte are, obviously siding with Kuminga in this particular situation. It's just, I guess the bigger question, and we've been kind of kicking it around the last 45 minutes or so, and I'll pose it to you. If I took championship off the table, what would constitute success for the Golden State Warriors this year? Is it, rearranging the deck so that you have optionality, flexibility in the offseason? Is it trying to get a clear distinction on who Kuminga is or Pajemski or any of those guys? Is it, make the core feel good about themselves? How are you quantifying and measuring success for this year if I took championship off the table?
Yeah, the way it's been termed to me, and I mean, this is more of like a, hey, what are they going to do at the trade deadline? It's just figuring out who can play around Steph Curry and like how they should rearrange around Steph Curry. Maybe if you go out and get players you think can play with Steph Curry, see if they can over the next few months, because the reality is like they still intend to be a Steph Curry team ecosystem the next few years. And that makes sense, right? I mean, even though he's had a slump lately, he's still considered a top 5, top 10 player, and I'm being generous. So build around him. The plan is to still build around him, and to build around him, you need to build a smart team around him. So I think, you mentioned Kuminga, like I think they've discovered he can be a Steph Curry player, right? I mean, he's been in the starting lineup with him for now, 13 games or so. Like it's gone well. Steph needs downhill attacking, rim pressure. I think we've seen that. So I think it's a lot of that. Just how do you want to rebuild and reset this thing around Steph?
Yeah, I'm with you there. Anthony Slater, our 95.7 The Game insider here on The Roast. So getting Steph going here is going to be difficult. Obviously, you don't have Draymond Green. You have Wiggins in the slump. Clay's doing his thing. I think Clay's been solid for the most part for 23, 25 games. He had a little mini 3-game slump, but it seems like he busted out of that. But how do you get Steph going here against these longer, more athletic defenders? We've seen Scotty Barnes. We're going to see Herb Jones tonight. We're going to see Trey Murphy III. How do they get Steph Curry going at this age against these longer, better defenders who are more athletic than Steph?
Well, you mentioned Draymond. I mean, getting him back will really help, right?
Yeah.
And I don't think he's that far away, right? He's not going to play tonight. He's pushing, for this to just be like a kind of a weak ramp up. I think you'll see him probably on the road trip at some point. So that will help. Beyond that, I mean, he's also just got to hit shots. Like I agree, but the other night, how many makeable shots out of those 9 threes did he just miss? So I think there's some of that. It's tough, though, because there's such a burden on him. I mean, Steve Kerr talked about it yesterday. I mean, there's understandable fatigue that goes into this. But, I don't know. It's like the age-old question. Do you put him on the ball more? Do you run more high pick and roll? I mean, certainly the lineup combinations matter. Maybe just getting more floor spacing out there with him, getting Moody out there a bit more. Saric with Kuminga as like a downhill guy. If Wiggins isn't hitting his shots, do you just wipe him away from any Steph minutes? Maybe. I don't know. That's what they're trying to solve, right?
Right. Kuminga, Kerr, that whole beef squash where Kuminga comes out after the Denver Nuggets game, they blow an 18-point lead in the last 6:51. Kuminga doesn't play the last 18 minutes. Is that all done, or is there something still lingering there with Kuminga and Steve Kerr?
Well, I think this month will be telling. How trusting will Steve Kerr be of Jonathan Kuminga? How many minutes does he get as Draymond Green slides back into the fold and maybe, Draymond's taking minutes away from somebody.
Yeah.
Some people. Who's that going to be? Do they decide to keep Kuminga in the starting lineup when Draymond comes back? Is it a Kuminga Draymond 4-5, or is it Draymond at the 4? Well, Draymond may come off the bench and start, but when this team is fully set, do they view it as a Kuminga Draymond 4-5 or a Draymond Trace Jackson Davis, Draymond Looney 4-5? I think that'll matter. And if Kuminga, I think over the next month, what does Kuminga want? I think we all know, right? He wants to be viewed and played as like a 30-minute per night, no matter what, bona fide, puzzle piece, big puzzle piece on a team. If it is going to be with the Warriors, I think he's content, right? I mean, he's made that clear. He said the other day, I love it here. And I think he loves it here if he's a big part of here.
Right.
But if he's not, I mean, he wants to be that somewhere. He's got extension eligibility coming up. He's 21, 22. And where I would agree with him, I think he's ready for that.
Yeah.
I think he's ready to be a 32-minute-a-night player every single night on somebody's team. If it is with the Warriors, I think he's happy. If it's not, he might not be.
All right, Anthony, we'll see you a little later. Get some rest, man. Early start, man. So weird, huh? 5:30 start on a Wednesday?
Very weird. I mean, they're doing it because it's all national TV.
Right.
They're the early game. There's 2 West games on ESPN tonight. but it's very strange. And like, how many people are going to be in their seats at tip-off tonight?
Oh, man, that's tough. It's like the NBA Finals, right, with those 6 p.m. starts during the week, man.
A little bit more motivation for an NBA Finals game.
Well, should the Warriors be motivated just to win a home game? They've already lost 10 home games.
Hey, I expect the Warriors to be very motivated tonight. Do I expect the fan base to be motivated to be in their seated tip? I don't know. The one thing I will say about tonight, the Pelicans are the 6th seed right now.
I know.
And the Warriors obviously are where they are. But if the Warriors win tonight, they're only 3 losses away from the Pelicans. And that's what I look at the loss column. So it's packed down there. And these games are starting to become big games.
Mm-hmm. I'm with you there. By the way, we'll talk to you about the Dolphins next week. We'll see if they can brave the cold in Kansas City.
We're talking about the Dolphins' second-round opponent next week. Sounds good.
Anthony, you did guarantee a win against Buffalo. I told you, take Buffalo into 2.5. We'll see you later, Anthony. Good stuff as always.
All right, fellas.
All right, Anthony Slater, our 95.7 The Game insider here.